Habsburgs buried in the Imperial Crypt. Part 2, 1800s to 2023. Death is called the Great Equalizer. And while everyone must die, if you're a Holy Roman Emperor, eternal rest comes with some elaborate, bronze-plated perks. Since 1633, dearly departed members of the Habsburg Dynasty have been interred in an extensive catacomb beneath the Capuchin Church in Vienna, Austria. There are 150 people, or at least parts of people, buried here, including 12 emperors, 20 empresses, and 15 other monarchs, as well as one Protestant and one devoted governess who wasn't a Habsburg at all. Let's explore the 10 burial vaults of the Imperial Crypt, dig up the past, and find out which Habsburgs are spending eternity together. Recently, I had the opportunity to visit the Imperial Crypt and exhume some of its secrets myself. In Part 1, we explored the oldest 6 burial chambers: the Founders Vault, Leopold Vault, Karl Vault, Maria Theresa Vault, Franz Vault, and Tuscan Vault, and met the dead emperors, empresses, and other royals interred there. Now we'll continue our winding way through the catacombs and visit the 4 relatively new chambers of the Imperial Crypt, meeting Emperor Ferdinand I, Maximilian, Emperor of Mexico, Maria Louise, Empress of France, Emperor Franz Joseph, Empress Sissi, Empress Zita, and many other Habsburgs. The Ferdinand Vault was completed in the mid-1800s, in time to receive the remains of Ferdinand I in 1875. His parents, Franz II and Maria Theresa of Naples and Sicily, were double first cousins. After centuries of inbreeding, the Habsburg gene pool was pretty shallow. Ferdinand suffered from hydrocephalus, neurological problems including epilepsy, and a speech impediment. He was also demanding and imperious. His intellectual disabilities and 20 seizures a day made it impossible for him to rule, and a regency council ran the empire. Nevertheless, he was married to Maria Anne of Savoy. The court physician thought it unlikely that he would be able to consummate the marriage. When he tried, he had 5 seizures, so not a great wedding night. In 1848, revolution broke out all over Europe, with people demanding an end to monarchy. Suddenly, having an unstable emperor who didn't actually rule was not a good look. Ferdinand was instructed to abdicate in favor of his 18-year-old nephew, Franz Joseph. The ex-emperor spent 27 years in blissful retirement and died at 82. His wife, Maria Anna, spent her time doing charity work in Prague. She died at 80 and was returned to Vienna to be buried below her estranged husband. Only these 2 neoclassical sarcophagi, the emperor on a stone plinth and his wife directly on the ground, are visible in the Ferdinand Vault. However, inside the walls of this chamber are concealed the coffins of 37 lesser Habsburgs. They were moved out of older vaults, so the crypt would appear less cluttered. Their placement is based more on how they fit into the wall than how they fit together as a family. Pier A contains Alexander Leopold, one of Emperor Leopold II's 16 children. At 22, he decided to light a fireworks display to impress his sister-in-law. But the first rocket landed in a pile of gunpowder, which exploded, killing the prince and his servants. His sister, Maria Amalia, died of pneumonia on Christmas Day at the age of 18. Their niece, Louise Elizabeth, the only child of Emperor Franz II's first wife, Elizabeth, lived just 16 months. Franz II's son, Joseph Franz, died of yellow fever at 8. His younger brother, Johann Nepomuk, died at 3. 2 children of Archduke Karl Ferdinand, Marie Eleanor and Franz Joseph, both of whom died in infancy. Archduke Leopold Ludwig was a general and admiral during the Austro-Prussian War. He never married and lived to 74. Archduke Robert Ferdinand died at 10. Pier B contains his elder sister, Maria Antonia, who became abbess of the Theresian convent in Prague. She suffered poor health and spent every winter in Cannes, where she died at 25. Emperor Franz Joseph's only sister, Maria Anna, who died of epilepsy at 4. Archduchess Maria Carolina was engaged to be married when she died at 23. Ferdinand Salvator and Renar Salvator, both children of first cousins Archduke Karl Salvator and Princess Mary Immaculate of Sicily. Caroline Ferdinanda died at the age of 9. Sophie Frederique was the first child of Emperor Franz Joseph and Empress Elizabeth. Upon her birth, her grandmother took her away from her mother. Sissy was not allowed to breastfeed or care for her baby. She begged her husband for help, but he refused to stand up to his mother. When Sophie was 2, her parents and her baby sister Gisela got away from the palace on a holiday to Hungary. But both daughters fell ill with the stomach virus, possibly typhoid. Gisela recovered, but Sophie died in her mother's arms. Sissy returned to Vienna in deep despair. Her mother-in-law blamed her for her daughter's death, and the rest of her children were taken without opposition. Sissy wore a bracelet with her first daughter's portrait for the rest of her life. Pier C contains 2 of the 9 children of Archduke Ferdinand, Duke of Teschen, Natalie, who died at 14, and Stephanie, who died at 4. Maria Anna, like her elder brother, Emperor Ferdinand, was born intellectually disabled and with facial deformities. Due to centuries of Habsburg inbreeding, she was kept out of the public eye at Herzendorf Palace, where she died at 54. Maria Caroline married her first cousin, Archduke Rainer Ferdinand. They had a happy, childless marriage and were the most popular Habsburgs of their generation. Maria lived to 90 and was the last surviving great-grandchild of Maria Theresa. Maria Louisa was the daughter of Maria Carolina, Queen of Naples and Sicily. She married her double first cousin, Ferdinand III, Grand Duke of Tuscany, and they had 6 children. Napoleon forced them out of Italy, and they fled to Vienna. There, Maria Louisa died at 29, giving birth to a stillborn son, who is buried in her arms. Ferdinand III, now 52, married 25-year-old Maria of Saxony. She was widowed 3 years later and lived the rest of her life in Italy. She died at 68 and was buried near her late husband's first wife. Maria Antonia of the 2 Sicilies was famed for her beauty. Her first cousin, Leopold II, Duke of Tuscany, proposed, and they had 6 children. She loved the art scene in Florence, but a revolt in 1859 forced them off the throne. She was widowed at 56 and retired to an Italian-style villa in Austria. Her youngest and favorite son, Johann Salvator, renounced his imperial titles to marry a dancer, Millie Strubel, and travel the world. In 1890, the newlyweds were caught in a storm off Cape Horn in South America, and their yacht disappeared. Maria Antonia refused to accept that her son was dead, and she was scammed by several people promising false information and even claiming to be the missing duke. Johann's remains were never found, so could never be placed in the Imperial Crypt. Maria Antonia spent her final years in anguish and died at 83. Finally, Caroline Louise, a 4-year-old daughter of Franz II. Pier D contains Maria Antonia's second son, Karl Salvator. During his military training, he took an interest in firearms. He invented and patented numerous guns, including the first self-loading pistol and machine gun. He died of natural causes at 52. His wife, Mary Immaculate of Sicily, was known for her beauty. Karl celebrated the birth of each of their 10 children by giving her a pearl necklace. Empress Sissy jokingly called the couple the Pearl Divers. Mary Immaculate died at 54. 3 of their children, Albrecht Salvator, who died at 25, Maria Antonia, who died at 16, and Henrietta Maria, who died at 2, are buried in the same pier. Their grandson, Leopold Marie Alphonse, fought in World War I. After the Austrian Empire was abolished, he fled to the United States. In 1930, he was part of a scam to steal a diamond necklace from his cousin, Infanta Maria Teresa of Portugal. Leopold spent 12 days in jail for the crime. He may also have worked as a secret agent for the Nazis. In the 50s, he tried his luck in Hollywood. The Archduke scored a few minor roles, then retired to Connecticut, where he died at 61. He was cremated, and an urn containing his ashes was returned to the imperial vault. Archduke Ernst was a soldier who fell in love with a Hungarian noble, Laura Baschenia. His cousin, Emperor Franz Joseph, forbid the marriage, but the couple lived together anyway. When Ernst died at 71, his 4 children tried to claim his estate, but the Austrian court refused. Adelgund was the daughter of King Ludwig I of Bavaria. She married Francis V, Duke of Modena, but he was forced off the throne by the Italian unification. Adelgund died in Munich at 91. Caroline Leopoldine was the 1-year-old daughter of Emperor Franz II. Her baby sister, Amalia Teresa, was buried with her. Ludwig Salvator was in love with his cousin, Archduchess Mathilde. But after her tragic death, coming later, he never married. Instead, he traveled the world on his yacht, studying nature and writing books about insects. He purchased a large plot of land on the Spanish island of Majorca, which is now owned by actor Michael Douglas. He died at 68. Maria Teresa was the daughter of Miguel I of Portugal and the 3rd wife of Archduke Karl Ludwig. They had 2 daughters, but were unhappy. After Empress Sissy left court, Maria Teresa gained considerable influence and acted as hostess for her brother-in-law, Emperor Franz Joseph. She was close with her stepson, Franz Ferdinand, and looked after his children after he was assassinated. Maria Teresa died at 88. Archduke Joseph Ferdinand Salvator was a soldier in World War I and an early airplane enthusiast. In 1938, he was arrested by the Nazis and sent to Dachau concentration camp. He was later released, but he died in 1942 at the age of 70. Now let's climb out of the wall and into the spacious, new vault. This addition was built in 1960, along with the installation of air conditioning and dehumidifiers throughout the crypt to preserve the tombs and remains. A workshop was also installed to repair damaged sarcophagi. 23 Hapsburgs were moved out of older tombs and into the new vault, and grouped in 3 loose themes. The first theme, bishops. Leopold Wilhelm, son of Emperor Ferdinand II, held several bishoprics, was Grand Master of the Teutonic Order, governed the Netherlands, and was a prominent art collector. He died in 1662, age 48. Karl Joseph survived the childbirth which killed his mother, Empress Maria Leopoldine. As he already had 2 older brothers, he was created Prince Archbishop of Olomouc, but he died of illness at 14. Charles Joseph, Prince of Lorraine and Prince Archbishop of Trier, was a skilled politician who helped his cousin Karl VI get elected emperor and participated in negotiations to end the War of Spanish Succession. He died of smallpox at 35. Maximilian Franz was Maria Theresa's 16th and youngest child. At 24, he became Grand Master of the Teutonic Knights, then Archbishop and Elector of Cologne. He was a lover of music and an early patron of Ludwig von Beethoven. The composer planned to dedicate his first symphony to his first patron, but Maximilian Franz died before its completion at the age of 45. His nephew, Rudolf Johann, Prince Archbishop of Olomouc, was a student and friend of Beethoven. He was appointed a cardinal. He died of a cerebral hemorrhage at 43. Second theme, Karl, Duke of Teschen, and his family. The third son of Emperor Leopold II, Karl joined the army at a young age. He was the victor of the Battle of Aspern. He was a successful strategist and military reformer, and was considered one of Napoleon's greatest foes, and an Austrian hero. At 44, he married 17-year-old Henrietta of Nassau-Weilberg. Despite the age difference, the couple were very fond of each other, and the marriage was allowed even though she was a Protestant. She popularized the Christmas tree, a Protestant tradition, in Austria. Her 7 children were raised Catholic. While nursing them through scarlet fever, Henrietta caught the disease and died at 32. There was controversy about burying a Protestant in the imperial crypt, but her brother-in-law, Emperor Franz, ended the argument, saying, "She dwelt among us when she was alive, and so she shall in death." Henrietta is the only Protestant in the imperial crypt. Per Habsburg tradition, her heart and viscera were placed in separate urns for burial elsewhere. But the monks at the Hofburg Palace and St. Stephen's Cathedral were not so accepting of Protestant entrails. So Henrietta's organ urn was placed in the crypt. Karl and Henrietta's eldest son, Albrecht, Duke of Teschen, followed his old man into the military and was Inspector General for 36 years. But he was not so brilliant and spent most of his time lamenting the good old days and holding back progress. He refused to leave office, even when he was blind and his horse had to be led by a servant. He died at 77. His wife, Hildegard Louise, was the daughter of King Ludwig I of Bavaria. She died at 38 from lung disease. With them is buried a son, Karl Albert, who died in infancy, and a daughter, Mathilde. Her cousin, Ludwig Salvator, was in love with her, but her parents insisted on marrying her to Umberto, Crown Prince of Italy. The wedding never took place. While attending the theater, 18-year-old Mathilde snuck a cigarette. Her father, who forbid smoking, suddenly appeared, and she tried frantically to hide the cigarette behind her back. It fell into the folds of her elegant gauze ball gown, and the fabric burst into flames in front of her horrified family. Mathilde died a few days later from her injuries. Her tragic death was mourned throughout the empire, and thousands attended her midnight funeral march. 3 more of Karl and Henrietta's children are buried nearby. Karl Ferdinand also joined the military and was more successful than his brother. His daughter, Maria Christina, married Alfonso XII and became Queen of Spain. Rudolf Franz died 2 weeks after his birth. Wilhelm was also a military man and Grand Master of the Teutonic Order. He died after falling off his horse at 67. Also in the new vault, Marie-Louise was Emperor Franz II's eldest surviving child. She was 15 when Napoleon forced her father to dissolve the Holy Roman Empire. 4 years later, Franz made peace by handing his 19-year-old daughter over to the 41-year-old French emperor. Despite the age difference, Napoleon and Marie-Louise got on well. She enjoyed being Empress of France and gave birth to a son and heir. But Napoleon's fortunes changed dramatically. He was defeated by the Sixth Coalition, which included his father-in-law. He was exiled to the island of Elba, where he died. Marie-Louise's 4-year-old son briefly succeeded his father as Napoleon II, but the coalition victors refused to acknowledge him. He died of tuberculosis at 21. No longer an empress, Marie-Louise still made out okay. She was granted the Duchy of Parma in her own right. She ruled there for the rest of her life, married 2 men she actually liked, and had 3 more children. She died of pleurisy at 56. Third theme, relatives of the last emperor. As the younger brother of disabled Emperor Ferdinand I, Franz Karl was on the ruling council, but he was unambitious and ineffectual. He married Sophie of Bavaria, daughter of King Maximilian I. She was called the only man in the Hofburg. She had a close relationship to Napoleon II, and there were rumors that he was the father of her second son, Maximilian. During the 1848 revolt, Sophie persuaded her husband to give up his right to the throne in favor of their eldest son, Franz Joseph. Thus, Sophie became the power behind the throne. She died of pneumonia at 67. A stillborn son, born in 1840, is laid next to her. Her second son, Maximilian, married Charlotte of Belgium, but they had no children, likely because he passed venereal disease on to her. At 32, Maximilian was invited to establish a new monarchy by becoming Emperor of Mexico. His claim was based on his descent from Charles V, Holy Roman Emperor and King of Spain, who sent conquistadors to sack the Aztecs back in 1519. Maximilian and Charlotte traveled to Mexico, but their foreign regime was not popular and lasted only 3 years. Civil war broke out. Charlotte escaped, but Maximilian refused to leave. He was executed by firing squad at 34. His body was embalmed and taken on a tour of Mexico. After 6 months, it was returned to Vienna and placed in the Imperial Crypt. His brother, Archduke Karl Ludwig, married Margaretha of Saxony. While on a trip to Italy, she contracted typhoid and died at 18. Next, he wed Maria Annunziata of Bourbon Two Sicilies. They had a happy union and 4 children, but she died of tuberculosis at 28. Third wife, Maria Theresa of Portugal, outlived him. During a trip to Palestine, he drank water from the Jordan River. It gave him typhoid, and he died at 62. Next in the line of succession was his son, Franz Ferdinand, who became heir to his uncle, Franz Joseph. He and his wife Sophie were assassinated in Sarajevo in 1914, an event which famously sparked World War I. The couple were laid to rest not at the Imperial Crypt, but at their home, Archstetten Castle. Franz Ferdinand's rival throughout his life was his younger brother Otto. He was far more popular, and his elder brother feared that he had designs on the throne. Otto married Maria Josepha of Saxony, and they had 2 sons. But Otto was frequently unfaithful and fathered numerous illegitimate children. He contracted syphilis and receded from public view. He lost his nose and wore a rubber prosthetic. He died at 41. His long-suffering wife, Maria Josepha, survived him by 38 years. She nursed soldiers in World War I and advised her son, Emperor Karl. She died in 1944, age 76. Also in the new vault are Archduke Leopold Salvator and his son, Rainer Karl. He fought in World War I, and after the fall of the Habsburg Empire, he worked as a taxi driver in Vienna. He died of blood poisoning in 1930, age 34. The Franz Joseph Vault. In 1908, as part of the Jubilee celebrating his 60 years on the throne, Emperor Franz Joseph ordered the construction of a new mausoleum and chapel. Franz Joseph succeeded his disabled uncle, Ferdinand, when he was just 18. He wed his beautiful cousin, Elizabeth of Bavaria, and they had 3 daughters and a son. He was obsessed with her, but she kept her distance. She was bullied by her mother-in-law and struggled with the expectations of court and her own mental health. She spent much of her time traveling while Franz remained in Vienna, though she did return home to encourage him to sign the treaty creating the dual monarchy of Austria-Hungary. The couple's only son, Crown Prince Rudolf, also struggled with mental illness. He was a bon vivant and behaved recklessly and promiscuously. He had an unhappy marriage with Princess Stephanie of Belgium and passed syphilis on to her, rendering her infertile. His doctors prescribed opium, cognac, morphine, and mercury, which further affected him neurologically. In 1889, the Emperor and Empress hosted a family dinner. Rudolf excused himself early to travel to his hunting lodge in Meierling. The next morning, his valet found he and his mistress, 17-year-old Baroness Mary Wetzera, dead in his bedroom. It was determined that he had shot her, then shot himself. The murder-suicide was covered up, and Mary's family snuck her body away. It was claimed that the Crown Prince had died of an aneurysm, as victims of suicide were not permitted to be buried in Catholic crypts. Elizabeth was devastated and wore black for the rest of her life. In 1898, the 60-year-old Empress was out for a walk in Geneva, Switzerland. A young man stumbled into her, then took off. The Empress collapsed. She had been stabbed in the chest with a 4-inch needle file. The young man was an anarchist who hoped to assassinate any royal he could find. Elizabeth briefly regained consciousness and was asked if she was in pain. She replied, "No, what happened?" then drifted out again, never to return. Her body was returned to Vienna, where Franz Joseph wept over her. The inscription on her coffin reads, "Elizabeth, Empress of Austria," and when the Hungarians complained, "and Queen of Hungary," was hastily added. Heartbroken by so much loss, Emperor Franz Joseph carried on for another 18 years. He died of pneumonia at 86 and was laid to rest between Elizabeth and Rudolph. The Crypt Chapel. Franz Joseph was succeeded by his grandnephew Karl I. He and his wife Zita of Bourbon-Parma were crowned in 1916. Karl tried desperately to preserve the empire. He secretly negotiated with the Allies, hoping to end World War I. But when Austria lost the war in 1918, he was forced off the throne and into exile. The family went to Switzerland, where Karl made repeated attempts to reclaim his thrones. The stress caused 2 heart attacks. He was exiled even further to the Portuguese island of Madeira. There he caught a cold, which developed into pneumonia. His last words to his wife were, "I love you so much." He died in 1922 at the age of 34. Karl's remains were laid to rest in the Church of Our Lady of the Mount in Madeira. Numerous attempts to move him to the Imperial Crypt have failed. Instead, the last Habsburg emperor is honored here only by a bust. Zita lived another 67 years and raised their 8 children. Austria eventually made peace with the remaining Habsburgs, and Zita and her descendants were allowed to return. She died in 1989, age 96. Her massive funeral in Vienna was attended by dignitaries and 200 members of the Habsburg family. Her heart was interred in Muri Abbey, Switzerland, next to the heart of her husband, Karl, so that they could be together in death. 2 of their sons and daughters-in-law are buried in the crypt. Former Crown Prince Otto considered himself the rightful emperor from the age of 10, as his father never officially abdicated. He fiercely opposed the Nazis, who in turn sentenced him to death. So he fled to the United States. After World War II, he returned and was elected to the European Parliament in 1969. He published several books on history and politics, and was one of the architects of the European Union. He died in his sleep in 2011, age 98. He was laid to rest with his wife, Regina of Saxe-Meiningen, who had died the year before at 85. Their son, Karl von Habsburg, is the current head of the Habsburg family. Karl and Zita's 5th child, Karl Ludwig, attempted to fight for the U.S. in World War II, but his Free Austrian Battalion was disbanded before they saw action. He married Princess Yolande de Lenya in 1950, and they raised their 4 children in New York City, where Karl worked for the Rockefeller Foundation. He died in 2007, aged 89. Yolande lived to the age of 100. She died in Brussels in 2023, and was the last Habsburg laid to rest in the Imperial Crypt. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment your thoughts, and check out my other history videos. You can also join my Patreon to support my work and get early access to all of my multi-part series. Thank you for watching.